is the media being unfair to Aaron Rodgers? We've seen a lot of sport talk shows talk about how he's supposed to get blamed for this game. He didn't show up. I know Max Kellerman said that
he's crazy.
He should have rose to the occasion and carried them to the win. I'm going to go first on this one. Just watching the game, I don't think any quarterback in the NFL would have had a chance if they were put in Aaron Rodgers' position. I don't think Aaron Rodgers had a chance in that game. The first interception was on him. Dean read the route, got the interception in a pick six. The second wasn't. Devontae dropped the ball. It landed in Mike Edwards' hands, and that was the second interception. But I don't think there was more than 3 plays in a row that I saw that game that Rodgers wasn't getting pressured. I felt like he was pressured the entire game. He didn't even have a chance to get the ball out. Outside of Adams, you don't have a legit weapon to get any separation. Marquise Valdes-Scantling is extremely average. Adam Lazard is injured, and he was emerging into their second best receiver. But when you look at the numbers, the Bucs got 5 sacks, 8 tackles for losses, and 13 QB hits. And Aaron Jones, who a lot of people were saying were one of the best running backs in the league and playing like one of the best backs in the league, got 10 carries for 15 yards. He averaged 1.5 yards a carry. So I don't think Aaron Rodgers should be blamed for this, and I hate the narrative in sports media and these mainstream talk shows and even amongst fans that quarterbacks have to carry or rise to this occasion. That is literally impossible, because I think football is one of the major team sports that it takes a collective to win games.
Yeah.
I've hardly ever seen, even from the elite players, I've hardly ever seen them legitimately put the team on their back. It's always a team effort in football, and I just hate that narrative that you get blamed just because the people around you played bad. I think it's a very general take.
And just to add to your point, the defense didn't play well either, which I think that we consider their defense one of the better units in the league.
They got 0 sacks that game.
Yeah, no sacks. Tom Brady played really well, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 166 yards. And then Ronald Jones, who I think, in my opinion, is an average to solid back, went for 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, this is not an offense. This is not a world-beating offense, in my opinion, especially with the injuries to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They are not what we expected them to be to this point in the season, and I think they made the Packers' defense look really bad yesterday. So I
think part of that is they've been injured, though.
Yeah, of course. And I think that with the injuries and everything, the Packers' defense made that offense look much better than it was last night. And I think that Aaron Rodgers got a lot of undeserved blame for the reasons that you mentioned. And Rodgers has been arguably a top 3 or top 5 quarterback in the league this season, and he has been carrying that Packers team, in my opinion. I don't think that without Aaron Rodgers, they're in the same position they are right now. So he has one bad game, and he's to blame.
You mentioned a good point about Rojo, Ronald Jones.
What is Rojo?
Rojo, that's his name. That's what they call him in Tampa. The Packers' weakness is stopping the run, and it showed against the Bucs. They weren't able to stop Ronald Jones, even though I think he's a pretty good back. But we've seen it in the playoffs, and watching this game, it reminded me of when I watched Green Bay versus San Francisco. You know what's going to happen. You know that they're going to get dominated.
You still can't stop it.
I wasn't sure that the Bucs were going to dominate the Packers. I actually had the Packers winning, but it was similar to me. I thought I was watching the 49ers out there, the way that they dominated the Packers. I think this just shows that the Packers, you're right that Aaron Rodgers does carry them. I think also the play calling by Matt LaFleur has been great all season. But Aaron Rodgers plays mistake-free football. The pick six he had yesterday was his 3rd pick six of his entire career.
And it was his first interception of the season.
Yeah. He's been mistake-free the entire year. In the first game that he has some mistakes, I could count 1 mistake. He's all of a sudden to blame, and he's this and he's that. He's not capable. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's just it's sensationalism is all it is, and it's just people trying to draw attention.
It's the media, because just before that game they was talking about, Aaron Rodgers is back, MVP, this, that, and the third. It's just the media. I look at it as just another game where 2 top teams play and 1 top team outbeats this other team. That's all. I look at it as that. I think Green Bay is going to bounce back. They're going to get it together. One thing they do have to figure out is the run game has to be consistent. And I don't know, they have to figure out another, like you said, Lazard, he was getting into his own. They got to get him back because you can't be walking out there with one receiver on the field. It's going to be easy to stop. The defense has to get back to doing what it was doing. And I think they'll be okay. I think this was just a stop on the road.
If anybody deserves blame, I think it's the offensive line and the defense. Because look at the biggest problems in that game, I think, were that you couldn't get the rushing attack going, which has to do with the offensive line. Aaron Rodgers had no time, got sacked 4 times, offensive line. And the defense, which got embarrassed pretty much. And it's not like Tampa Bay was on the field for a lot of the game. They actually lost the possession battle, which is not normally what you see from teams who win the football game. They lost the possession battle by 3 minutes, and they still embarrassed that defensive unit. 5 of 12 on third down. You can't let stuff like that happen. And I already read off the numbers from some of the guys that should not be putting up numbers like that, like Ronald Jones.
And I feel like that pick 6 kind of changed the game a little bit because, they was up 10-0. It looked like Aaron Rodgers was cooling and grooving. He throws the pick 6, and it looks like that's when everything started to turn. It got bad for Green Bay, and they started to exploit them. So I just think they just got to get it going.
And after the second interception, it just seemed like the game was over.
Yeah, I was just like.
But it wouldn't concern me too much if I was the Packers. They're still a great team.
They're a great team.
They're still top 5, top 6 team.
They're a great team, but I think they have a ceiling. Their ceiling is that they can't beat any of the elite teams.
Who's the elite team?
I think Tampa is one of the elite teams in the NFC. I also think 49ers, they don't match up well with them at all. Teams that are very run-heavy, they don't match up well. I think the Rams are a bad matchup for them, too.
Something that is good
the only reason I give them a chance against the Seahawks is because the Seahawks defense has been really bad.
Something that is good for them, but also it's good for them up until the playoffs, but then I think will hurt them come playoff time, is they don't really have to play an elite team all season long, except they just played Tampa Bay. They beat New Orleans earlier in the season, if you still can consider them an elite team. And they get Tennessee in Week 16. Other than that, I don't think
they play Chicago.
They play Chicago. If you want to consider them elite, personally,
Chicago.
I don't. I don't know how Joel
Aaron Rodgers
feels
is gonna do
about calling them an elite team, but realistically, they have Tennessee. And other than that,
Wait, what team is elite?
The Bears.
I said the Bucks.
No, we were talking about the schedule.
No. I'm saying their schedule moving forward. The only really elite team they have to play moving forward is Tennessee. The only undisputably team, because they also have the Niners, they have the Bears. Other than that, it's going to be a pretty easy rest of the way for them going into the playoffs. And while I think that will be very good for them to get a high seed, you're going to be going into the playoffs playing teams like you mentioned, the Seahawks, and you're not going to have any of those grinded out, gritty games against those teams during the season.
For me, I just don't trust the Packers because they can't stop the run. If you can't stop the run, I think you can't win in the playoffs. We've seen it multiple times with teams that if you can't stop that, you're basically prone to letting the other team run down the clock and beat you by managing the game. That's what happened to Baltimore last year against Tennessee.
They should have traded for Steve McClendon. That was a great move for the Bucs.
That was a great move, yeah. I agree.
I'm confident in this team. I think they can make some noise in the playoffs. The top 4, top 5 team in the NFC.
I would not at all be surprised to see them come out of the NFC.
Wait, come out go to the Super Bowl?
Yes, I could definitely see that.
I think a healthy Niners team they can't beat.
I'm not saying I would. Well, I don't think the Niners are going to be healthy the rest of the way. I'm not picking them to win the NFC, and I don't think I will come that time.
Right.
But if we fast forward to February and they're in the Super Bowl, it wouldn't shock me.
When you have that man,
I think their ceiling is losing in the NFC Championship, just like they did last year.
I also think that the NFC is weaker than the AFC overall in terms of beyond the Seahawks. I don't see any truly dominant teams in the NFC. I think the Seahawks are the closest thing they have to a dominant team. When you look at the AFC, you got to get through the Chiefs, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Titans.
I get that.
All better than anybody in the NFC. Not
I don't
the
think the
Seahawks.
Titans are a dominant team.
I get that, but I feel like the Bucks and the Saints we will put in the conversation, but they've been dealing with a lot of injuries early on in the season.
And they gotta find.
They gotta find
the
that group. I
page.
think those two teams you can definitely consider at top form or two elite teams in the NFC. Along with this, I think the Niners too, if they were healthy, would be considered an elite team because they can beat almost any team in the AFC if healthy. Other than I think they can still even beat the Chiefs. So I think just injuries have been banging up these teams.
Yeah,